There's a moment in everyone's spiritual journey. Maybe it comes during meditation, maybe while watching the sunset alone, maybe after a particularly raw heartbreak where something breaks open. The veil lifts, reality peeks through, and you see it. You don't just read about it or entertain the concept, you experience it. A flash of understanding, an inner click. You realize something foundational. This whole thing, life, society, identity, it's a game. And here's the part no one really warns you about.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Once you've seen the strings, the trapdoor, the sleight of hand, you can't ever see the trick the same way again. The illusion is broken. And no matter how much you try to re-enter the old mindset, the one where you believe the rabbit came from the hat, some part of you remains quietly, permanently awake. That's the spiritual Rubicon. And you've crossed it. Let's be real. It's disorienting at first. The things that used to make sense, your job title, your status, your morning affirmations, your 5-year plan, start to feel like cardboard props on a stage that no longer holds any real weight. You try to re-engage. You show up for the meetings. You repeat the mantras. You scroll. You plan. But the buzz is gone. You're watching yourself from a distance, playing along with the game everyone else seems so sure is real. And that dissonance, that's the echo of awakening. That's the price of clarity. Because now you know, this whole construct we call reality is stitched together from agreements, assumptions, and shared delusions. We're born into a system where we're taught roles, values, and meanings like lines in a play. And for a while, we buy it. We perform. We believe the script is who we are. But awakening is the moment the curtain falls and you realize the actor isn't real. The script isn't truth. The stage isn't the world. And the weirdest part, no one else seems to notice. You walk through the crowd, watching people fight, panic, chase, grieve over illusions, arguing about rules in a board game they don't know they're playing. And your first instinct might be to shake them awake, to scream, "Can't you see it's all just a story?" But then you remember how painful your awakening was. The grief, the groundlessness, the sense of loss when the familiar world dissolved. And you realize it's not your job to pull anyone out before they're ready. Because once they see, they can't unsee either. Watts always said awakening is more like remembering than learning. Like waking up from a dream and suddenly recalling, oh, right, I'm not just this character. I'm the awareness behind it all. And yet, this remembering doesn't come without consequences. At first, it's exhilarating. Everything shimmers. The edges of things blur. You feel connected to all of it. The trees breathe with you. The sky is somehow you looking at yourself. But then, the collapse. The things that gave your life structure, success, identity, moral certainty, even time start to disintegrate. And this isn't a metaphor. It's literal. Time unravels. Not in a sci-fi wormhole kind of way, but in a deep, existential, oh dash my dash god dash nothing dash is dash actually dash happening dash except dash right dash now kind of way. The past, memory. The future, fantasy. The present, that's all there ever is, and ever was. You stop living in anticipation. The next thing loses its grip. There's nothing to get to. No finish line. Just this. Always just this. And that's where a kind of terror can creep in. Because if there's no ladder to climb, no next level, no linear path, what do? You be. You learn, slowly, painfully sometimes, to just be here. To drop the chase. To drop the stories. To sit inside the eternal now, even when it feels boring, or pointless, or naked. And that's when something magical happens. Peace. Not the peace of everything's great, but the peace of not needing everything to be different. The peace of seeing things as they are, without filtering them through narratives of good or bad, progress or failure, should or shouldn't. This is the radical freedom Watts pointed to. The freedom that comes when you stop clinging to meaning and start dancing in the mystery. Of course, the mind doesn't give up so easily. Even after awakening, it'll try to rebuild the old scaffolding. It'll say, okay fine, nothing means anything. So what's the new goal? How do I win at being awakened? It'll want to turn enlightenment into an achievement badge. It'll try to repackage non-duality into a brand, turn awareness into an identity, monetize your insight. But something in you just won't bite anymore. Because you know. And you can't unknow. You see the game. You know when you're caught in story again. You feel it in your body, the contraction, the anxiety, the subtle push-pull of trying to make life different than it is. And with practice, you learn to soften, to surrender, to drop back into being, over and over.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
The ego rebuilds itself in clever disguises. You get caught in politics, comparison, judgment. You think you've regressed, but you haven't. You can't go back. Not really. Because even in the middle of the illusion, you know it's illusion, and that changes everything. The dream may resume, but it never feels the same again. It's like watching a movie after reading the script. You might still enjoy the drama, but you're no longer fooled. That awareness, that subtle, uncheckable knowing is the seed of freedom, and it grows. So what does life look like after you've seen through it? It's not what you think. You still pay bills. You still have conversations. You still feel joy and pain, but there's a lightness underneath it all. A sense of play, of non-attachment. You stop taking yourself so seriously. You laugh more. You cry more. You stop needing to fix everything. You start letting things be messy, unresolved, beautiful in their brokenness. You stop seeking answers and start loving the questions. You live, not in the abstract, but in the tangible, present, breath by breath kind of way. And yes, sometimes it's lonely, because you're no longer in sync with the noise of the world. The gossip, the urgency, the chase. You watch people sprint toward illusions you've already walked away from. And sometimes that hurts, but it's also holy, because every moment of presence, every breath of true seeing, reconnects you to something deeper than meaning, being itself. And that's the real homecoming. So if you've had that moment, if you've seen through the veil, if you've tasted the truth, if the dream has cracked and the light has poured in, don't panic when the world feels strange afterward. Don't worry if you don't know what to do next. Don't mourn the loss of who you were. You're not broken. You're not lost. You've just crossed the threshold. And on this side of it, things move differently. Slower, deeper, realer. You don't need a map. Just breathe. Just be. Because once you've seen what's real, there's nothing left to chase. Only everything left to experience. So let the magic trick be over. Let the illusion collapse. And let yourself fall not into meaning, but into mystery. Because you can't unsee what you've seen, but you can start to live it. So here you are. 1 foot still in the dream. 1 foot in the wide, echoing hall of truth. You're awake, but the world hasn't caught up. And there's no going back. It's funny, isn't it? You always thought awakening would feel like bliss. Like glowing certainty. Like everything would fall perfectly into place. But what they don't tell you is that spiritual awakening is less like ascending into the heavens and more like the floor vanishing beneath your feet. It's not a reward. It's a reckoning. Because once you really see that everything you took as real was a series of beliefs, stories, performances, and borrowed meanings, it breaks something open in you that can't be patched back together. And no matter how many times you try to squint and pretend, the illusion won't stick anymore. You can't unknow that your job is a role. You can't unknow that your identity is a collage of preferences, habits, and childhood conditioning. You can't unknow that time is a concept, not a constant. You can't unknow that the you've been protecting all these years doesn't actually exist in any solid, separate way. And that realization, it doesn't come with balloons and a certificate. It comes with quiet, deafening quiet. At first, it feels like loss. A spiritual hangover. You miss the comfort of meaning. You miss believing that if you just worked hard enough, climbed high enough, perfected yourself thoroughly enough, you'd get somewhere. But awakening is the moment you realize there is no somewhere. There's just here, now, this. And the mind hates that. The mind wants a mission. It wants forward motion. It wants improvement. Because that's how it's always defined worth. You've been conditioned to believe your value lies in what you're striving for, not in what is. So when you drop striving, drop becoming, drop performing, the mind goes into freefall. Wait, it says, if I'm not fixing myself, who am I? If I'm not chasing something, what am I doing here? And the answer is, being. You're being here, fully, nakedly, without escape routes. And that's what Watts meant when he said awakening is irreversible. Because once you've tasted reality without the mask, once you've glimpsed the space beneath the script, you realize that most of life is just theater. And that can be disorienting. You may go through days where everything feels surreal. You're surrounded by people obsessing over things that feel impossibly small. Deadlines, status, likes, traffic, gossip, fear, politics, competition, applause. They're all shouting, and you're just standing there, feeling like you stepped out of a play and accidentally wandered back onto the stage mid-scene. But here's the twist. You're not above the play. You're in it. Always were. But now you know it is a play. You know it's not the whole truth. And that knowledge changes the way you participate. You can still go to work. Still pay bills. Still hug your friends and argue with your partner and laugh at stupid memes. But you do it from a place of presence, of awareness, of lightness. Because you know, this isn't all there is. And that's liberation. It's not that you stop engaging with life. You just stop being fooled by it. You stop investing all your energy in the performance. You stop trying to make everything mean something. And instead, you start noticing. You notice how a leaf flutters. You notice how a child laughs. You notice the ache in your chest. And instead of analyzing it, you feel it. You notice how everything arises and passes sensations, thoughts, moods, identities. And in that noticing, you drop into something deeper than thought. You drop into truth. Watts often talked about the illusion of the separate self, this idea that you are a little bubble of consciousness floating around in a hostile universe, trying to survive, to compete, to achieve something before the buzzer runs out. But when you see clearly, that illusion dissolves. You realize, there's no line between you and everything else. There's no separate self watching life happen. You are life happening. You are not the observer of the wave. You are the wave. You're not the character in the movie. You're the screen. You're not a passenger in this body. You're the space in which all of this thoughts, sensations, stories arises. And when you live from that place, something softens. You stop clenching. You stop trying to control the uncontrollable. You stop pretending you know how life is supposed to go. Because you finally understand, there is no supposed to. There never was. But here's the paradox. Even after awakening, even after seeing through the illusion, you still have to live. You still have a body. You still get hungry. You still feel pain. You still get annoyed when the wifey's down. And sometimes, when the dream reasserts itself, you'll forget. You'll get caught up again in drama, desire, doubt. But that's okay. You can't fully go back. Even in your forgetting, part of you remembers. Part of you is always watching, always aware. That's the irreversible part. Awakening isn't a permanent high. It's not a state you achieve and then defend at all costs. It's a shift in perspective that becomes the new background of your life. Even when the mind gets noisy, the space that holds it all remains untouched. That space is you, not the ego you, not the story you, but the real you, the one who watches the story unfold without needing to fix it. And the more you relax into that space, the more you let life just be what it is, the more peace begins to replace panic. You stop reaching for the next fix, the next insight, the next spiritual experience. You realize that this breath, this moment, this ordinariness is the miracle. And if you're wondering, so what do I do with this awareness? How do I live now that I've seen through the illusion? The answer is both simple and radical. You live. You live simply, authentically, presently. You laugh when you feel joy. You cry when grief moves through. You speak when truth rises. You're silent when it doesn't. You don't force yourself into masks you've outgrown. You don't pretend to be asleep just to fit in. You serve when it's called for. You rest when it's time. And most importantly, you stop waiting for life to start. Because it already has. It always has. You just couldn't see it before. So yes, it's true. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't go back to chasing shadows. You can't unknow that the self you tried to fix for years was never broken, because it was never separate to begin with. You can't rebelieve the story that happiness is one accomplishment away. And that's not a curse. It's the greatest gift. Because now, finally, you are free. Not because you found all the answers, but because you've stopped believing in the question. You are home, not somewhere far away, not in a future version of yourself, but here, in this, right now. Welcome back. And now that you're really here, you realize something even more unsettling, and somehow more beautiful. The world didn't change. You did. People are still rushing to prove themselves, still hustling for some imagined future, still arguing over illusions like status, importance, or being right. The systems, the stories, the roles, they all keep spinning. It's the same drama, same theater. But you're sitting in the audience now. Not with superiority, not with detachment, just clarity. And it's weird, isn't it? You see the game, and yet you still play it because bills exist, because relationships matter, because we're still human. But it's different now. You're not playing to win. You're not playing to become. You're playing because this moment is all there is. And participating in life is its own kind of art. You no longer mistake the costume for the character. You no longer confuse the character for the actor. And you sure as hell don't mistake the actor for the awareness behind it all. That awareness, call it consciousness, spirit, the Tao, God, presence, whatever name you like, that's what you are. And that can't be unremembered. So yes, you'll still brush your teeth. You'll still wait in line. You'll still feel irritated in traffic. But there's a softness to it now. An inner wink. A quiet voice that whispers, none of this is what it seems. And none of it needs to be. Alan Watts called it the play of life, Leela, the divine game. And once you've caught even a glimpse of that cosmic joke, you stop taking the seriousness of it all so seriously. And that's a wild freedom. Of course, there's a grieving process, too. You grieve the old you, the one who believed things with his whole heart, the one who chased her dreams with tunnel vision, the one who was terrified of not being good enough because they really believed they were separate from the rest of life. There's something sacred in that innocence, and when awakening happens, it doesn't erase that part of you, it simply embraces it with understanding. It sees the striving, the fear, the identity building, and instead of judging it, it just holds it. Gently, you start to realize nothing you did before awakening was wrong. It was necessary. It was part of the unfolding. You had to forget who you were to remember who you've always been. You had to lose yourself in the maze of ego to discover the silent watcher within it. And now you don't need to perform wholeness anymore, because you're not trying to become whole. You're seeing that you've always been whole. That shift from becoming to being is seismic, because almost every message you've ever absorbed has told you that peace is conditional, that worth is earned, that meaning must be manufactured, that joy lives at the end of a goal. But awakening snaps that spell in half. It tells you the treasure isn't at the end of the road. The road itself is the treasure, and so is the stumbling, and the detours, and the rest stops, and the parts where you sit down and say, I don't even know where I'm going anymore. Especially those parts, because once you stop pretending to know, something deeper can emerge. Trust. Watts called it the wisdom of insecurity, the ability to live without clinging, without grasping, without needing to hold life still. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of people who don't just click away, and that means a lot. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, your ideas, or even what you'd like to see next. I read every single one of them, and your feedback genuinely shapes the direction of this channel. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. We've got more exciting videos coming, and trust me, you'll want to be here for them. This channel is just getting started, and your support helps it grow faster than you realize. Thank you again for spending a part of your day here with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, and as always, take care of yourself. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.